Hi, welcome to my second channel and I hope you are well. In this video, I'd like to talk to you about your ADI Part 2 test, which is the driving test for your ADI Part 2. Let's start the lesson. So like I said in this video, I'd like to talk to you about your ADI Part 2 test, which is the driving one. In this test, you will be driving for an hour. And in that hour, you need to show the examiner that you can't drive the car safely without any problem, meaning you can't have a serious fault or a danger fault, or you can't have more than 6 minor fault on your test, meaning you are allowed 6 minor or driver fault. If you get 7, you will fail. Okay, so even if you don't get a serious or danger, if you just get 7 minor fault, you will still fail your driving test. So you have to make sure that you don't get more than 6 minor or driver fault on your marking sheet. So in this video, I will be sharing with you 5 things that you should be careful of, or you should be doing training before you go to your test. 5 things that you should be aware of, and the reason is because you've been driving for a while now. And as you have been driving, you have picked up many bad habits. So before you go to your test, make sure you do a lot of training by yourself. You just go out and you drive and you get rid of those bad habits that I'm going to share with you in this video. Number 1 is the blind spot. You've been driving for a while. Maybe you don't look at the blind spot anymore, or like you should, or as you should. So every time you move off, changing lane, make sure your blind spot is checked, especially when you're moving off from here. You need to look around, look at the blind spot before you move off. Many learners, they fail because they don't look at the blind spot. Same with the ADI Part 2 test. If you don't look at your blind spot, you will fail. And so try to make a habit of looking at the blind spot every time you move off, every time you change lane. You must look at the blind spot. When you're moving this way, is this blind spot. If you're moving this way, meaning you are changing lane to this way, this blind spot. So depending on which way you are moving, make sure you look at that blind spot of that side. And remember, you are becoming a driving instructor. So you're not just checking because you want to pass your test. You are checking because that will be your habit for the remaining days as you drive. Why? Because when you teach your learners, this is one of the main important things you will be teaching, to make sure that they check their blind spot. You don't have it, how can you pass the message on? How can you teach your learners to look? For you to teach naturally and to come naturally from you to your learner, you must have the habit yourself that you check the blind spot before you move off. So number 1, I would say, make sure you check the blind spot every time you move off, every time you change lane. Do a lot of practice on that when you are driving, so that when you go to your test, you have that habit of doing it all the time. And also continue doing that after you pass your test also. Number 2 is the steering. Okay, now as a driver, like I said, you pick up many bad habits, and one of the other things you pick up is you cross hand every time you steer. You are crossing hand when you are steering. Okay, so try to get the habit the way you should be steering, holding 4-3, and you are driving keeping both hands on the wheel, and you are doing pull and push technique on your steering. So get that habit before you go to the test. That way you have a habit also when you are teaching. That's why you teach your learners. It's one of the most common thing many drivers, they pick up the bad habit after they pass, is crossing hands. Now that you are becoming a driving instructor and you are going to your Part 2 test, you realize that actually I am crossing hand. I shouldn't be crossing my hand. I should be holding 4-3 and driving keeping both hands on the wheel, and when I'm steering, I'm doing pull and push technique, not crossing hands, okay? So try not to cross hands on your steering. So look at other videos on my channel, how to steer, and practice yourself before your test and correct your steering if you have the bad habit of steering by crossing hands. So pull and push technique, holding 4-3 and keeping both hands on the wheel all the time, unless you are changing gear or something. Number 3 is the clutch. So if you're doing the test in a manual car, make sure you are dealing with the clutch the way you should. You probably picked up bad habits on your clutch. When you're moving, when you're driving along, maybe you are coasting most of the time. So for example, you're driving along and there's a traffic light coming up and it's red, and you know that you're going to stop over there, what you're doing is you're putting the clutch down and riding the car or driving the car, putting the clutch down all the way. Should you be doing that? What is coasting? Do you understand coasting? What is the danger of coasting? You as a driver, you as a driving instructor need to know all this, because you need to pass the message on to your learners. Why is it danger to coast? Why can't we coast? Why can't we just put the clutch down as we are stopping when there's a traffic light coming up? Why do we have to put the clutch down at the end? What's the danger if we put a bit too early? Look at those information. Read about it, watch videos. I've got many videos on my driving TV. As you know, I have another channel which is driving TV, where I help learners learn to drive. On that channel you will find many videos on steering as well as clutch. Learn about the clutch control, learn why coasting is bad, learn why we shouldn't coast, because you are going to your part 2 test for driving. After that, what is your aim? You are becoming a driving instructor, which means you need to understand what's the danger behind putting the clutch down too early, because only then you could pass the message on, you could teach your learners. Okay, so if you have a bad habit of putting the clutch down too early, make sure you get rid of that habit and understand why you shouldn't be doing that, and understand the coasting, understand how to use the clutch as a driver when you're learning in a manual car. Okay, so number 3 is the clutch. Number 4 is joining and leaving motorway. So motorway and dual carriageway, when you are joining and when you are leaving, make sure you understand, make sure you learn, make sure you do a lot of practice on those. So when you are joining a dual carriageway or motorway, you have a joining lane, you have a slip road where you join. Why do we have that lane? How should we join? The way you should be joining is matching your speed on the joining lane. When you are joining the motorway, you should be matching the speed of the motorway. So if the motorway is 70, you should be driving on the slip road or the joining lane, matching the speed. Why? Because if you don't match, soon as you enter and join the motorway, the car behind will be catching up really quickly unless you are doing the same speed as them. So you just joined on 50 and the motorway is 70 and the car behind you is doing 70, they're going to catch up really quickly because your speed is too slow. So as you join, match the speed of the motorway, and obviously if it's busy, then obviously you will stop on the joining lane, but you match, and if it's free, you look on your blind spot and you join. So make sure you learn how to join motorways. Also leaving, as you leave, what should you be doing? How should you be leaving? When should you put the signal on as you leave the motorway? So for example, there will be markers. So you'll have 3 bars, 2 bars, 1 bar. You should be signaling when you see the 3 bar, which is the 300 yards away. You should learn and understand when you should signal to leave. Also, when should you slow down? So don't slow down on the motorway, go to the slip road and then slow, because you don't want to slow too much on the motorway, because you're going to cause problem for the car behind. The reason the leaving lane is there so that you could go into the leaving lane and you could slow the car. You don't want to slow on the motorway because otherwise you're going to cause problem. So make sure you learn, practice how to leave and when to signal when you leave motorway. Okay, so joining and leaving motorway, dual carriageway, make sure you learn, make sure you study, make sure you go and practice many times until you get it. If you're a bit weak and you don't have the confidence, keep on doing it until you feel the confidence, until you feel you're okay. You are becoming a driving instructor, you should feel confident. If you don't, you're not going to feel the confidence of teaching others. And it's not just about teaching. You as a driving instructor, you should be good on all areas of driving. You should be a complete driver, and you can't be a complete driver unless you know how to join and how to leave motorways, dual carriageways. Okay, so number 4 is motorway, joining and leaving. We're going to be joining a motorway now. Okay, this is the joining lane. This is the motorway coming up. We're going to join mirror, and I'm going to be looking. I've signaled, I've matched my speed, And there's nobody there. Good. I'm now driving 70. So if there was somebody coming behind me on this lane, I'm fine. I'm not going to slow them down because my speed is good. So what's this marker?
300 meters.
200. So when do we signal now? So you signal on 300.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going. Don't slow down. Don't slow down.
Okay.
Don't slow down because you're going to slow the car behind. Now go into there.
Yeah.
Here. Here. Now brake. Now brake. You get it?
Yes.
This is the one where you join or you leave.
Okay.
Leaving, slowing down, joining, increase. Brake more. Wow. And number 5 is don't assume you failed. Okay? Many times, they fail because they become the judge. They do something wrong and they think, well, I failed, and they give up. And many times they realize that they didn't actually fail for that. At the end, they see that the examiner didn't fail them for that. They failed something afterwards. The reason that happened was because they already gave up. So when you do something wrong, don't make the judgment. It is not your call. You're not the judge. You're not the examiner. Let the examiner decide whether you passed or you failed. Don't assume, because if you assume you failed, then you're going to give up. And then you realize you didn't actually fail for that. You fell for something afterwards. And by then, you've already gave up. Your job is to drive safely. That is your job. Your job isn't to become the examiner, become the judge. You shouldn't be judging yours. You don't know what is fail and what is pass. There are many things the examiner will look at differently. They might let you go on some things. So whatever you do, whatever happens in your test, don't give up. Whatever happens, you continue doing your best. And at the end, if you fail, you fail. No problem. You pass. You will pass next time. And the reason I say that, unless you have that mentality, you will fail, because you're not going to be happy with your driving the way you drive. There will be some things that you do you're not going to be happy with. And that could be halfway, could be 30 minutes into the test. You've got another 30 minutes to drive, and maybe you've done something. Maybe you're not happy with something you've done. What does that mean? You're just going to give up? No, that's not an option. You drive for 1 hour. That's your job. You go and you perform, you drive, give your best for 1 hour. At the end, we'll see what happens. That kind of mentality you need for you to pass, okay? Don't be the judge. You're not the examiner. You are the person who's driving, and the examiner's job is to see whether you passed or not you, okay? So don't make that call. Don't become the judge that I failed or I passed. You just go and you perform, you give your best, and then we'll see at the end what happens. That kind of mentality will help you pass your test, okay? And last, I'm going to give you a bonus tip, which is when you go to the test, remember you are doing an ADI part 2. You are not a learner. You must get that in your head, that I am becoming a driving instructor, which means I am not giving this test like a learner. I've been driving for all those years. Now I need to show the examiner that I can drive safely without any problem. Go there with that mentality that I've already passed. Now I am showing the examiner how I passed. You just flip the thinking, because that way you will drive better. Just imagine you've passed. Imagine you passed, okay? And then if I say to you, can you come and drive for an hour and let's see how your driving is, knowing that you've already passed, how are you going to drive? The pressure is not there anymore that you're going to fail or pass. You've already passed. That way you'll have the confidence knowing that, well, it doesn't really matter because I've already passed. And that kind of mentality you need when you go to your test. If you think that you have to pass, you have that pressure in your mind, and that pressure pushes you towards doing bad things, doing silly mistakes. When you go to the test, two things. One, remember you're not a learner. You've been driving for all those years. You got rid of the bad habits because you've been doing the trainings. Now you are prepared and you are becoming a driving instructor. You need to remember that. You need to remind yourself that I'm becoming a driving instructor, meaning I'm going to be teaching others how to drive the car. That will give you the motivation. It will give you the inspiration. It'll wake you up. It'll give you that motivation knowing that I'm becoming a driving instructor. I'm not a learner. It's all in the thinking, isn't it? It's the way you think. If you have that thinking that I'm becoming a driving instructor, I will be teaching, your driving will be different than a learner. Because remember, you're not a learner. You're not going to the test because you are showing the examiner that you're a learner. You want to pass the test because you want to drive the car. You know how to drive the car. You are giving this test, showing the examiner, this is how I drive, and this is how I'm going to teach the learners how to drive the car to learn and to pass. You need to have that belief. You need to have that thinking in your thinking process that I've already passed. I know how to drive the car. I'm just showing someone how I passed or how I should be driving or how someone should be driving. I'm just showing. I've already passed. That kind of mentality, that kind of thinking will help you to do better in your test. Okay? So anyway, that's all I have to share in this video. I hope the video helps, and I truly wish you all the best for your part 2 test and also your part 3 in the future. This channel is here. Like I said, I do have another channel for learners, and many ask me on that channel to help with becoming a driving instructor, and this is why this channel is born. And I'm trying to give you as much as I can to give you the things that I know so that you become a good driving instructor. Not just pass the test, but actually become a good driving instructor. I don't want you to just pass the test. I want you to pass the test as well as become a good driving instructor. So I hope the video helps. If it does, please do give a thumbs up, and also do make a comment what you think of the video. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe so don't miss any of my future videos, and hope to see you again on the next video. Bye for now.